example of how this data is showing up. There's a few wobbles on that. And this is a slow-mo. So I was really focusing on this kick as a specific move that Bruce Lee's doing. And I think it's quite, if it was done not on the stage, it would be done very impressively.
Something about Bruce Lee's speed has never made sense, even to people who study movement for a living. Slow his kicks down frame by frame, and the footage doesn't look supernatural. It looks too perfect, as if his body was running on a physical system the rest of us don't have access to. For decades, fighters, scientists, and analysts have tried to explain how a 135-pound man generated force that shouldn't have been possible.
The relationship between training and human nature and what it is to move naturally. Bruce Lee used to talk about natural movement and honestly expressing yourself. So I was interested in exploring the question of the status of the sidekick as a second nature disciplinary technique.
For decades, people try to understand Bruce Lee's physical abilities have kept running into the same paradox. The more they studied his movement, the less sense it seemed to make. Footage slowed down to frame-by-frame clarity still didn't fully explain how someone his size could generate such explosive force, or how his kicks could accelerate so violently without looking sloppy, tense, or overextended. Every time researchers thought they had discovered the answer, another hidden layer of his mechanics appeared, revealing details even more complex than the one before. What started as a simple question, how is Bruce Lee so fast, became a scientific puzzle that refused to stay solved. In this video, we peel back every major layer of that puzzle. Not the myths, not the exaggerated legends, but the real mechanical foundations hidden inside his movement. Modern specialists, biomechanics researchers, martial arts experts, and neuromuscular analysts spent years dissecting his techniques, running them through contemporary scientific frameworks, and comparing them to what we now know about elite athletic performance. What they uncovered reshapes almost everything most people assumed about Bruce Lee. His abilities weren't supernatural, and they weren't the product of mystery. They were the result of an astonishingly refined system of mechanics, one built with intention, discipline, and a level of self-correction most athletes never achieve. Bruce Lee's speed wasn't simply fast. It was impossibly fast for someone moving with that much precision. Something about the way his legs fired, the way his hips rotated, and the way his body linked together created a kind of silent tension in anyone watching him. Long before people had the vocabulary to describe it, observers could feel that something unusual was happening beneath the surface. Even today, his kicks remain some of the most analyzed martial arts movements ever recorded, and still, they withstand the scrutiny. In fact, the deeper experts dig, the more mechanically extraordinary his movement becomes. Slow the footage down and you don't see chaos. You don't see frantic speed. Instead, you see an unusual calm, a level of mechanical exactness that should not be possible at such velocity. His joints align perfectly. His posture stays clean. His center of gravity barely wavers. The transition between relaxed motion and explosive tension happens at the exact millisecond needed to maximize acceleration. No wasted effort. No unnecessary contraction. No hesitation. Every single part of his body fires at the right moment, in the right order, for the right reason. That's the real mystery. Not that Bruce Lee was strong or quick or agile, but that he seemed to embody multiple high-level athletic qualities simultaneously. Qualities that, even today, rarely exist together in the same athlete. It wasn't one advantage. It was all of them overlapping in perfect harmony. This video breaks down those layers one by one. We'll explore the hidden mechanic that experts now believe sat beneath all of Bruce Lee's movement. The structural principle that amplified everything he did, from the smallest twitch of muscle to the largest expression of power. We'll uncover how he optimized force transfer, how he rotated with surgical precision, how he maintained balance under extreme acceleration, and how his neuromuscular system fired with sharpness that bordered on uncanny. We'll reveal how he eliminated energy leaks, how he created shock-level impact from a 135-pound frame, and how his training architecture predicted modern sports science decades before it existed. And most importantly, we will show you the ultimate conclusion researchers reached after years of analysis. Bruce Lee wasn't defying physics. He was obeying physics more cleanly than almost any athlete ever has. This is the story of the biomechanics behind Bruce Lee's legendary kicking power, rebuilt from the ground up through science, precision, and a level of discipline unmatched in martial arts history. Now, let's begin. Bruce Lee's speed wasn't just a product of fast movement. It was a result of a precisely synchronized mechanical chain. When most people watch him kick, they see only the final flash of motion, the blur of the leg striking outward. But biomechanics experts discovered that the true secret lies before that moment, in how every segment of his body contributed to the strike long before the foot even moved. What looked like a simple kick was actually a full body wave of force rising smoothly through a perfectly organized chain. To understand the foundation of that chain, you need to begin where all movement starts, the ground. Every strike originates from ground reaction force, the pressure an athlete sends into floor, which the floor pushes back with equal energy. Most fighters leak a large portion of that force before it ever becomes usable. Their joints misalign, their posture collapses slightly, or their muscles tense prematurely, scattering the energy. Bruce Lee was rare because he preserved almost all of it. The moment he pressed against the ground, the chain began, and nothing broke that chain. His legs carried the initial load with unusual efficiency. Instead of pushing with isolated muscle groups, Lee used his entire lower body as a united unit. He didn't press with the foot, then the calf, then the thigh. He pressed with all of them working together. That structure allowed the energy to travel upward without scattering. The first link of the kinetic chain, the lower body, acted like a solid base, passing the force upward as cleanly as possible. Then came the hips, arguably the most important connector in any powerful movement. While most fighters allow their hips to lag or rotate slightly out of sync with the rest of their body, Lee's hip motion behaved like a mechanical hinge linking the ground to the strike. His hips didn't just add direction, they shaped the entire path of the kick. They guided where the leg would travel, how the torso would stabilize, and when the force would release. Experts noticed something unusual. Bruce Lee didn't rotate too early or too late. His hips fired at the exact moment when the rising wave of energy reached them. This timing allowed the hips to multiply the force instead of simply redirecting it. Above the hips, his core acted like a stabilizing bridge. Most fighters either over-tighten their core, slowing movement, or keep it too loose, wasting energy and losing alignment. Lee found the perfect middle ground. His core stayed relaxed enough to allow rapid motion, yet engaged enough to keep the force traveling along a straight, efficient path. The torso didn't wobble, drag, or collapse. Instead, it behaved like a channel, maintaining integrity between the lower and upper segments of the chain. Then came the final phase, the kick itself. Contrary to popular belief, the leg didn't generate the majority of the power. It released it. Lee's leg acted like the final link of a whip, snapping outward by riding the accumulated momentum built by the entire body. That's why, when slowed down, his kicks look almost unreal. The leg wasn't working alone. It was delivering the output of the entire chain. What made the movement even more remarkable was the absence of mechanical gaps. In most athletes, force drops somewhere along the chain. There's a moment when momentum fades, when muscles misfire, or when the body fights itself. But in frame-by-frame analysis, Bruce Lee showed almost no drop. Each segment of his body contributed at the exact moment it needed to, reinforcing the segment before it and strengthening the segment after it. The chain didn't just transfer energy, it accelerated it. Another unusual detail emerged when researchers studied muscle activation sequences. Most fighters tighten their muscles far too early in an attempt to generate power. But tension kills speed. Tight muscles resist movement, slow acceleration, and prevent smooth transfer of force. Bruce Lee did the opposite. He stayed relaxed through most of the motion. His limbs looked fluid, almost soft, up until the final instant. Only at the moment of contact did he tighten sharply, releasing a spike of acceleration similar to the crack of a whip. This technique, late tension, makes a strike rise dramatically in speed at the final moment rather than slowing down before impact. But even late tension wouldn't have worked if his alignment wasn't flawless. Alignment ensures that force travels in one direction instead of scattering outward or upward. Lee positioned his ankle, knee, and hip in a straight, structurally efficient configuration that protected the energy and prevented internal loss. Because his joints aligned so cleanly, he didn't need to correct his posture during the kick. His body was already in the optimal shape before the movement started. Finally, his stance tied everything together. While many fighters shift awkwardly or make small adjustments before kicking, Lee rarely had to. His stance was already positioned for efficient force delivery. Weight placement, foot angle, and hip orientation all worked together so that when he initiated the strike, the chain could activate instantly. No delay, no wasted motion, just pure mechanical efficiency. All of this created a single physical outcome. Bruce Lee reached peak speed earlier in the movement than most fighters do. He didn't gradually build momentum. He created it instantly. That early acceleration is what made his kicks look supernatural. Experts eventually realized Bruce Lee didn't simply move fast. He moved correctly at high speed. And that combination is nearly unheard of. When experts slowed down Bruce Lee's kicks and stripped away the visual flash, one pattern emerged before anything else moved. His hips. The hips always turned first. Long before the leg extended, long before the torso shifted, long before the foot accelerated outward, there was rotation. And this wasn't a stylistic choice or a habit from his training background. It was the mechanical heart of his power. Biomechanics researchers eventually discovered that this rotational sequence wasn't just helpful, it was mathematically optimal. Rotation obeys one of the most important rules in physics. Angular momentum multiplies speed. When the hips turn sharply, everything connected to them accelerates, whether the athlete consciously tries to accelerate or not. The hips act like the handle of a whip. When the handle moves, the whip doesn't simply follow. It multiplies the motion, creating faster and faster acceleration the farther it travels from the source. Bruce Lee mastered this principle with a level of timing that very few fighters ever approach. Most martial artists rotate their hips, but very few rotate them correctly. Some rotate too early, causing the leg to lag behind and lose alignment. Others rotate too late, limiting the amount of angular momentum that can feed into the kick. Lee didn't make either mistake. He initiated the rotation at the precise moment when the body could use it most effectively, right after ground reaction force traveled to the legs, yet before the leg began its outward motion. This created a kinetic wave that the leg could ride like a springboard. The effect was profound. By the time his leg started to extend, it wasn't generating its own speed. It was being carried by rotational momentum already in motion. His foot was essentially surfing a burst of torque created by the hips. That's why footage of Bruce Lee's kicks often shows an initial blur even before the leg is fully extended. The rotation had already accelerated the limb. Rotation also created automatic alignment. When athletes try to align the leg, knee, and foot manually, they often slow down. They make micro adjustments mid-motion, which disrupt timing and bleed off force. Bruce Lee never seemed to need those adjustments. Once his hips turned correctly, the rest of the body fell into place. His knee rose to the right angle, his foot followed a direct line toward the target, and his torso stayed stable. The rotation placed everything exactly where it needed to be without conscious correction. Another advantage came from how rotation interacted with his balance. Many fighters generate power by throwing themselves into the kick, sacrificing stability for force. Lee never did this. His hips rotated around a control center. Imagine a spinning top. The tighter its center, the smoother and faster it spins. Lee treated his body the same way. Even at high rotational velocity, he kept his weight grounded through a supporting foot. This allowed him to rotate sharply without falling off balance or compromising his stance. Because he maintained stability, he didn't need to recover after a powerful kick. He landed in a ready stance almost instantly. This recovery efficiency made his rotation even more powerful. The faster a fighter can return to balance, the faster they can strike again. Lee's rotation didn't just amplify force, it preserved continuity. His next movement was always already prepared. Biomechanically, this created another rarely achieved advantage: compounding momentum. When rotation is timed perfectly, momentum doesn't just travel, it grows. Each segment of the body adds to the previous one. The legs contribute force from the ground. The hips add torque. The core stabilizes and directs. The leg extends and releases. Bruce Lee didn't just stack these forces. He synchronized them. And that synchronization is where most fighters fail. They twist without alignment. They rotate without stability. They extend the leg without proper torque. They lack the internal timing that binds all these motions into one powerful output. Bruce Lee had that timing. His hips weren't simply moving, they were leading. Experts call this principle sequential rotation, meaning each part of the body rotates at the exact moment when it can add the most momentum. Bruce Lee demonstrated textbook sequential rotation decades before sports science formally identified it. That's why modern analysts often describe his movement as predicting contemporary biomechanics. He was doing what high-level strikers are trained to do today, long before the research existed. Yet his rotation wasn't just functional, it was economical. He rotated only as much as he needed to. No wasted degrees, no excessive twist, no exaggerated motion. Every inch of rotation contributed to acceleration, and none of it slowed him down. In martial arts, unnecessary rotation is a common flaw. It telegraphs the strike, drains energy, and disrupts timing. Lee eliminated these flaws through relentless refinement. Another unique element of his rotational power was how early it appeared. Most fighters build rotational speed gradually. Bruce Lee reached high rotational velocity almost immediately. This early rotation gave him something extremely rare: explosive torque in the first moments of movement. For an opponent, this creates the illusion that the kick just appears. By the time they register the hip turn, the leg is already on its way. This illusion has been described by many of his training partners. They reported that his strikes seemed to bypass the usual visible windup, and rotational mechanics explain exactly why. When torque appears early and suddenly, the strike doesn't need a big preparatory motion. It doesn't need a dramatic pullback. The power is already stored. When researchers studied these sequences in slow motion, they found a consistent pattern. The hips predicted everything. Whether the kick required height, speed, direction change, or extra snap, the adjustment always began with the rotation. His hips were the steering wheel of the entire movement. Rotation wasn't an accessory to Bruce Lee's power. It was the engine. When most people discuss Bruce Lee's power, they point to the obvious: the speed of his leg, the sharp rotation of his hips, or the tight structure of his stance. But when biomechanics experts analyzed his movement frame by frame, they discovered an entirely different source of power, one far less visible, yet far more important. Bruce Lee produced extraordinary force not only because of what he generated, but because of what he didn't lose. Energy leakage is one of the biggest enemies of athletic performance. It happens when joints fall out of alignment, when unnecessary muscles tighten too early, when limbs drift off the mechanical path, or when the body wastes momentum correcting itself mid-motion. Most fighters leak enormous amount of energy without ever realizing it. Their kicks look powerful, but much of potential force dissipates before it reaches a target. Bruce Lee was almost unique in that he leaked almost nothing. The efficiency of his mechanics was so high that he preserved an unusually large percentage of the energy moving through his body. The first and most significant piece of this efficiency was tension control. While many fighters tense their muscles throughout the entire kick, Lee stayed relaxed through most of the motion. Tight muscles create resistance, fighting against the very movement the athlete wants to accelerate. Relaxed muscles, on the other hand, allow fluid acceleration. Lee treated each kick like a wave, smooth at first, then snapping into sharp force at the final moment. This timing allowed momentum to build naturally before being amplified explosively. Biomechanically, this produced a pattern known as late acceleration, in which speed spikes sharply right before impact. Many fighters accelerate early and slow down as the kick extends, wasting energy and reducing force. Lee reversed the pattern. The last few inches of his kick were the fastest, creating a whip-like effect that generated high force at the moment it mattered most. By placing the peak acceleration at the end instead of the middle, he avoided the common problem of losing steam before impact. Joint alignment was another crucial factor. When the ankle, knee, and hip align in a direct mechanical path, force travels cleanly from the ground, through the leg, and into the target. When they misalign, the body absorbs part of the energy, softening the strike. Misalignment acts like biological padding. It cushions the blow instead of transmitting it. Bruce Lee virtually eliminated that padding. His joints lined up with textbook precision, allowing force to pass through him without being absorbed internally. Experts noticed that even in high-speed footage, his knee didn't wobble, his hip didn't shift awkwardly, and his ankle didn't roll. Everything stayed in the ideal zone. This level of alignment usually comes from scientific coaching and motion analysis tools. Bruce Lee achieved it through relentless personal refinement long before such technology was available. Another source of energy preservation came from the path of the kick itself. Many fighters let their limbs drift outside the optimal arc of motion, causing force to scatter sideways rather than forward. Lee simplified his kicking path until only the essential line remained. His leg traveled directly toward the target, without unnecessary curvature or deviation. This efficiency meant that nearly all the momentum he generated translated into forward force. To understand the true depth of Bruce Lee's kicking power, you have to look beyond the limbs and even beyond the rotation. The next layer of his mechanics lives in something most people never associate directly with striking: the center of gravity. While casual observers focus on the speed of his leg or the snap of his hip, scientists discovered a quieter, more foundational truth. Bruce Lee controlled his center of gravity with precision normally found in elite gymnasts and Olympic sprinters, not in martial artists. And that control shaped everything else about his movement. The center of gravity, cog, determines balance, but also determines efficiency. When the cog drifts too far outside the body's optimal range, movements become slower and weaker. Muscles compensate, joints overcorrect, momentum leaks away, and stability collapses. But Bruce Lee rarely made those mistakes. Frame-by-frame footage revealed that even during his fastest kicks, his center of gravity stayed inside a compact, stable zone. He didn't lean dramatically. He didn't counterbalance with exaggerated torso motions. He didn't fall backward to make up for the force of the kick. His body remained centered, grounded, and controlled. Even while moving at extreme speed, Bruce Lee's legendary kicks weren't magic. They were the result of dedication, precision, and relentless self-improvement. And that's the real lesson here. You don't need superhuman abilities to transform your skills. With consistent practice, smart training, and a commitment to refining every detail, you can unlock power, speed, and confidence far beyond what you thought possible. Keep pushing, stay curious, and never stop improving. Your potential is greater than you think.